The package arrived on a Tuesday, unmarked, unaddressed, just a large, ornately carved wooden crate leaning against their front door. Inside, nestled in velvet, lay a mirror. Not just any mirror, this one was old, its silvered surface flecked with age, the frame a masterpiece of twisted, grinning figures.
10-year-old Noah, home alone, felt a shiver crawl down his spine as he touched its cold glass. It wasn't a gift, it was a warning.
At first, the oddities were small, little things that could easily be dismissed as coincidences or the product of an overactive imagination. A misplaced item here, a flickering light there. Nothing too alarming, just enough to make you pause and wonder if you had really seen what you thought you saw. A glimpse of his mother, Mrs. Davies, dropping a plate, her face etched with surprise. She had been reaching for a glass when the plate seemed to leap from her hands, shattering on the floor. The sound echoed through the house, a sharp reminder that something was not quite right. Later that day, it happened again. This time, it was the sound of footsteps in the hallway when no one was there. Mrs. Davies had been alone in the house, or so she thought. The footsteps were slow and deliberate, as if someone was pacing back and forth, waiting for something. A flash of his dog, Buster, limping, a gash on his leg. The poor animal had been fine just moments before, running around the yard with his usual boundless energy. Now, he was whimpering in pain, his leg wrapped in a makeshift bandage. It was as if the house itself had turned against them. Then, the visions grew darker. Shadows seemed to move on their own, creeping along the walls and floors. The air grew thick with an unspoken tension, a sense of dread that hung over the house like a dark cloud. It was as if the very fabric of reality was beginning to unravel. A car careening, headlights like eyes in the night. The vehicle swerved wildly, narrowly missing a tree before coming to a stop. The driver, pale and shaken, had no explanation for what had happened. It was as if an unseen force had taken control, steering the car towards disaster. A man, face obscured by a hood, lurking near their house. He appeared at odd times, always just out of reach, his presence a constant reminder that they were being watched. Who was he? What did he want? These questions haunted them, adding to the growing sense of unease. Each scene flickered in the mirror's depths, moments before reality caught up. The mirror had become a window into another world, showing them glimpses of events that had yet to happen. It was both a blessing and a curse, offering them a chance to prepare, but also filling them with a sense of impending doom.
Mom, I saw something in the mirror. Noah's voice trembled as he spoke, his eyes wide with fear. He had seen something terrible, something that he couldn't quite put into words. It was as if the mirror had shown him a glimpse of the future, a future that he desperately wanted to avoid. It was like a warning. The images in the mirror were not just random visions, they were messages, warnings of what was to come. But how could they decipher them? How could they know what to do to prevent the terrible events that the mirror seemed to be predicting?
Noah, honey, it's just your imagination. Mrs. Davies tried to comfort her son, but her own voice betrayed her. She had seen the images too, and she knew that they were not just figments of their imagination. But how could she explain that to a child? How could she protect him from something that she didn't fully understand herself? Mirrors don't show the future, or do they? The question lingered in the air, unanswered. The mirror had shown them things that had come to pass, and things that had yet to happen. It was a mystery, one that they would have to unravel if they were to find any peace. The whispers of tomorrow were growing louder, and they could no longer ignore them.
Fear became a constant companion. Noah avoided the mirror, covering it with a sheet, yet its presence lingered. He tried to explain, to tell his parents, but the words caught in his throat.
How could he explain the unexplainable? The mirror held him captive, its grip tightening with each passing day. He was a puppet master, forced to watch his own horrifying show.
The hooded figure from the vision haunted Noah's dreams. Every night, the same terrifying image would replay in his mind, a dark silhouette lurking in the shadows, its presence suffocating. Noah would wake up drenched in sweat, his heart racing, unable to shake off the feeling of dread. He knew with chilling certainty that the man was real, the threat imminent. The fear gnawed at him, making it hard to focus on anything else. He would spend hours staring out the window hoping to catch a glimpse of the figure, but it never appeared during the day. The nights, however, were a different story, One evening his heart pounded against his ribs as he saw it in the mirror, the same hooded figure, its eyes glowing with malice. Noah's breath caught in his throat and he felt a cold sweat break out on his forehead. He knew he had to act, but fear paralyzed him. The man, knife glinting, approaching his mother in the garden. The sight was like a punch to the gut. Noah's mother, unaware of the danger, was tending to her flowers, humming softly. The hooded figure moved silently, its intentions clear. Noah's mind raced, and he knew he had to do something, anything to save her.
This time, Noah acted. He couldn't let fear control him any longer. He grabbed the nearest object he could find, a heavy flashlight, and bolted out the door. His legs felt like lead, but adrenaline pushed him forward. He screamed, racing outside, tackling his mother to the ground just as the figure lunged. The impact knocked the wind out of him, but he held on tight, shielding his mother with his body. The hooded figure stumbled back, momentarily thrown off balance.
The police never caught the intruder. Despite their best efforts, the figure vanished into the night, leaving no trace behind. The neighborhood was on high alert, but the sense of unease lingered. Noah couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over. His mother, bruised but alive, called Noah her hero. She clung to him, tears streaming down her face, grateful for his bravery. But Noah couldn't celebrate. The image of the hooded figure was burned into his mind, a constant reminder of the danger that still lurked.
But Noah knew the truth. The battle was far from over. He could feel it in his bones, a deep, unsettling certainty that the figure would return. He spent hours researching, trying to find any clue that could help him understand what he was dealing with. The mirror wasn't finished with them. Not yet. It was a portal, a gateway to something dark and sinister. Noah knew he had to be prepared for whatever came next. The fight for his mother's safety was just beginning.
Sleep offered no escape. Every night, as the world around him drifted into peaceful slumber, he found himself trapped in a relentless cycle of haunting visions. The darkness of his room became a canvas for his fears, painting scenes that were too vivid to ignore.
My dreams, they used to be fun, full of adventures. Now they're just the mirror's canvas. Every time I close my eyes, I see things that I can't unsee. It's like my mind is playing tricks on me, showing me a reality that doesn't exist, yet feels so real.
He saw classmates falling, cars crashing, fires erupting. These weren't just random images. They were scenes of chaos and destruction, each more terrifying than the last. It was as if he was being forced to witness a world unraveling before his eyes.
Each vision, it's so sharp, so vivid. I can't tell what's real anymore. It's like I'm living in two worlds, one where everything is normal, and another where everything is falling apart. And the worst part is, I don't know which one is real.
He became withdrawn, his young face etched with worry. The weight of his visions bore down on him, making it difficult to focus on anything else. His once bright and cheerful demeanor was replaced by a constant look of anxiety and fear.
Noah, honey, are you okay? You seem so distant lately. His mother's voice was filled with concern, but he couldn't bring himself to tell her the truth. How could he explain the nightmares that plagued him every night?
I'm fine, Mom, really. He forced a smile, hoping to ease her worries, but deep down he knew he was far from fine. The visions were becoming more frequent, more intense, and he felt powerless to stop them.
His parents, oblivious to the source of his torment, grew increasingly concerned. They noticed the changes in him, the sleepless nights, the distant stares, the sudden outbursts of fear. They tried to reach out, but he kept pushing them away, afraid that they wouldn't understand.
I just don't understand what's going on with him. He's not the same. His father's voice was filled with frustration and helplessness. They had always been a close-knit family, but now it felt like there was an invisible barrier between them.
Little did they know, their son was trapped in a prison of his own mind, haunted by fragments of a terrifying future. Each night, he faced a new horror, a new vision that left him questioning his sanity. And as the days went by, the line between reality and nightmare began to blur, leaving him trapped in a world of perpetual fear. Then, the worst vision of all. It began subtly, a shift in the reflection, a darkening of the mirror's surface. Then, it appeared. Not a fleeting image, but a sustained scene of horror.
His father, lying still on the living room floor, eyes staring vacantly, and standing over him, a figure he knew all too well, himself.
Noah's breath hitched. This was not a future he could outrun. This was a future he seemed destined to create. Panic swelled, choking him. He couldn't let this happen. He wouldn't. His mind raced, grasping for solutions. He couldn't tell anyone, couldn't risk the possibility of making it real. There was only one option. He had to destroy the mirror.
That night, armed with his father's hammer, he crept into the attic, each creak of the floorboard echoing his fear. He swung the hammer again and again until the mirror lay in pieces, its malevolent gaze finally shattered.
Exhaustion claimed him. He slept soundly for the first time in weeks, his dreams mercifully quiet. But the relief was short-lived. The next morning, as he walked into the living room, his blood ran cold. The mirror hung above the fireplace, fully restored, its surface gleaming ominously, and in its depths a single image flickered.
Noah, his face contorted in a rictus of fear, staring back at himself.
The mirror was a part of him now, its magic woven into his very being. He couldn't escape it, couldn't break free. He was bound to it, tethered to its terrifying power. The question wasn't how to stop the visions. The question was, could he control them? Could he bend the future to his will, or would he forever be at the mercy of its dark whispers?
Taking a shaky breath, Noah stared into the mirror, into the depths of his own terrified reflection, and prepared to face the darkness that awaited him.